In a world obsessed with appearances, we often look at others and think they live better, happier, or more successful lives. But Arthur Schopenhauer warned us of a dangerous illusion: envy. What you see in others is never the full truth. Every life hides its own pain. Every smile has its cost. To envy is to admit that you do not value your own path. True wisdom begins when you stop comparing and start appreciating the quiet strength of your own existence. Envy blinds you to your own fortune. This idea captures one of Arthur Schopenhauer's deepest insights into human nature. He believed that much of our unhappiness comes not from what we lack, but from what we think others possess. When we look at someone else's life, their success, beauty, wealth, or status, we begin to measure our own worth by comparison. In doing so, we lose sight of our own blessings, our quiet joys, and the simple privileges that make our existence meaningful. Envy is not just a feeling. It is a distortion of perception, a lens that makes your own life appear smaller and emptier than it truly is. Schopenhauer understood that the mind has a tendency to exaggerate what it desires and to overlook what it already has. When you see someone living in comfort or achieving recognition, your imagination paints a perfect picture, one without suffering, loneliness, or struggle. But this image is a mirage. The person you envy is also a prisoner of their own hidden fears, disappointments, and insecurities. Their apparent happiness is often only a mask that conceals the same human dissatisfaction that afflicts everyone. To envy them is to envy an illusion, a projection of your own desires, not the reality of their life. The danger of envy is that it shifts your focus outward. Instead of nurturing your inner life, your thoughts, growth, and peace, you begin to live through comparison. Every success of others feels like your failure. Every joy they experience becomes a reminder of what you think you lack. This is how envy blinds you. It steals your ability to see your own good fortune. You stop appreciating the things that make your life unique, the moments of calm, the relationships that sustain you, the talents that are solely yours. Gratitude and envy cannot live in the same heart. The more you feed one, the more the other starves. Schopenhauer taught that happiness depends not on what you possess, but on how you perceive it. A person who constantly compares will always find reasons to feel deprived, no matter how much they own. But one who learns to see value in what they already have will feel rich even in simplicity. Envy is therefore a form of blindness, a blindness to your own inner wealth. It narrows your vision until all you can see are the advantages of others and the deficiencies of yourself. Once trapped in this mindset, you lose control over your emotions, and your peace of mind becomes dependent on the lives of people who may not even think about you. When you free yourself from envy, you begin to see life as it is, imperfect, but still full of beauty. You recognize that your path, with all its obstacles, has shaped you in ways that no other life could. The absence of envy allows you to rediscover gratitude, to notice the details you once ignored, the quiet morning light, the warmth of friendship, the freedom to think and choose. These are treasures that envy hides from you. Schopenhauer would say that wisdom lies in understanding that the external world can never give you lasting satisfaction. Everything external is fleeting, vulnerable to change, and often beyond your control. What remains constant is the inner state, your capacity to appreciate, to find meaning, and to stay content regardless of comparison. Envy blinds, but awareness heals. When you shift your attention from others to yourself, you start to see how much you already have. The more clearly you see your own fortune, the less you feel the urge to measure it against another's. The wise person does not envy. They observe, learn, and remain at peace within their own boundaries. In the end, the richest life is not the one that has the most, but the one that sees the most value in what it already holds. Appearances are deceptive. This truth lies at the heart of Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy of life and human behavior. He believed that most people live under the illusion of surface impressions, judging happiness, success, and worth by what they can see, rather than by what actually is. To Schopenhauer, this blindness is not accidental. It is part of the human condition. The world we perceive is shaped not by truth, but by representation, a reflection filtered through our desires, fears, and ignorance. What we call appearance is merely the outer shell of reality. And the tragedy of human life is that most people never look beyond that shell. When we see someone smiling, surrounded by luxury or admired by others, we instinctively assume they are happy. We project our own idea of happiness onto them, believing that what we lack, they must possess. But appearances are a performance, a carefully constructed display that conceals far more than it reveals. Behind every image of perfection lies uncertainty, struggle, and pain. The person who seems endlessly confident might be hiding insecurity. The one who appears powerful may live in constant fear of losing control. Schopenhauer observed that life for everyone is marked by suffering, a universal law that no one can escape. To envy or idealize others, therefore, is to misunderstand the reality of the human condition. This illusion of appearance dominates modern life even more than in Schopenhauer's time. People curate their identities, polishing what they show and burying what they feel. Social approval becomes the new measure of worth, and image replaces substance. Yet this endless performance traps people in anxiety, because no appearance can ever fully satisfy or reflect the truth. When we chase after what looks appealing, we are pursuing shadows, illusions that fade as soon as they are touched. Schopenhauer would call this the will in action, the restless drive that pushes us to desire, to compare, to chase what others seem to have, never realizing that it is the nature of desire itself to be endless. The danger of trusting appearances is that it leads to false judgments about others and about ourselves. We admire people we do not truly know. We despise ourselves for not fitting an image that was never real. In doing so, we fall into a cycle of illusion and disappointment. Schopenhauer believed that wisdom begins when one learns to see through this deception. The wise person recognizes that every external show of joy or success hides an internal burden. The world is not what it looks like. It is what it feels like from within, and that inner experience cannot be seen from the outside. When appearances deceive us, they also trap us in imitation. We begin to shape our lives around what seems valuable rather than what truly matters. We adopt goals, styles, and ambitions that belong to others, not to ourselves. The result is inner emptiness, a feeling that even when we achieve what we desired, something essential is missing. Schopenhauer would argue that this emptiness comes from mistaking illusion for truth. The cure is not more achievement or recognition, but deeper understanding. The ability to see through appearances and accept the imperfection and suffering that accompany every life. Once we learn to doubt appearances, our perspective begins to shift. We stop idolizing others and start observing more carefully. We see that beauty fades, wealth changes hands, fame disappears, and yet the same inner restlessness continues. This insight frees us from envy and illusion, replacing them with compassion and clarity. Instead of being blinded by what others show, we begin to understand what they endure. Every person is fighting a silent battle that no appearance can express. To realize this is to develop a kind of quiet wisdom, the humility to see that no life is perfect, and no appearance tells the whole story. In the end, appearances deceive not because the world is malicious, but because the human mind wants simplicity. It wants clear images of success and failure, joy and pain, without dealing with the complexity beneath. But Schopenhauer reminds us that truth is always deeper, often darker, and infinitely more subtle than what meets the eye. The wise person does not seek comfort in illusion. They seek freedom in understanding. To see beyond appearances is to awaken from the dream of comparison and to live with clear eyes, aware, detached, and at peace with the hidden reality of life. True happiness comes from within. This idea stands at the core of Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy, one that challenges the modern obsession with wealth, recognition, and external success. For Schopenhauer, happiness was not something that could be pursued through possessions or achievements, because those things belong to the outer world, a world of change, uncertainty, and illusion. True happiness, he believed, exists only in the inner world, the realm of thought, perception, and peace of mind. What determines the quality of our life is not what happens to us, but how our mind interprets and responds to those experiences. The world, as Schopenhauer saw it, is full of suffering. Every desire once satisfied gives birth to a new one. Every pleasure is brief and followed by restlessness. People chase wealth, fame, and love thinking they will bring lasting fulfillment, but the satisfaction never stays. The mind adapts, grows bored, and demands more. This endless cycle of wanting and disappointment is the trap of the human will, the constant craving that drives life forward but never allows it to rest. Schopenhauer believed that the only escape from this cycle is to turn inward, to seek peace not in what you have, but in how you see. True happiness comes when the mind learns to detach itself from constant desire. The more you depend on external conditions for your peace, the more fragile your happiness becomes. If your sense of worth depends on how much money you earn, how others see you, or how often things go your way, you are building your peace on sand. A single loss, a single rejection, or a single misfortune can destroy it. But when happiness comes from within, from self-understanding, acceptance, and inner calm, it stands independent of the outer world. Nothing can take it away because it is not built on temporary things. Schopenhauer often said that a wise person learns to limit their desires, not to expand them. The fewer things you need to be happy, the closer you come to freedom. This does not mean withdrawing from life or rejecting joy. It means freeing yourself from dependence on outcomes. A peaceful mind enjoys what comes but does not cling to it. It sees beauty in simplicity, meaning in solitude, and contentment in being rather than having. This kind of happiness is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and resilient. When people seek happiness outside themselves, they also become slaves to comparison. They look at others and believe happiness is somewhere else, in another life, another job, another person. But this illusion only deepens their suffering. Schopenhauer would say that the more we search for happiness in the external world, the more we guarantee our misery. The external world is ruled by change and chance. Everything within it fades. Real happiness, therefore, cannot depend on it. It must come from something stable. And the only stable reality we possess is our inner life, our thoughts, our character, our ability to remain at peace amid chaos. To find happiness within means to accept that life will never be free of pain. But pain loses its power when you stop demanding that life always please you. Schopenhauer admired those who could live calmly in the face of imperfection, who could find beauty in transience and strength in solitude. Such people, he thought, are truly rich, not because of what they own, but because of what they are. Their contentment flows from self-knowledge, from seeing clearly how fleeting the world is and choosing to rest their peace on something deeper. True happiness is not the absence of suffering, but the mastery of it. It is the ability to remain centered when everything around you changes. It is a quiet awareness that the outer world can never complete you, because what you seek has been inside you all along, the stillness of the mind, the strength of understanding, and the serenity of accepting life as it is. Every life has its burdens. This idea reflects one of Arthur Schopenhauer's most profound observations about the human condition. He believed that suffering is not an accident or an exception in life. It is the rule. Every person, no matter how fortunate they appear, carries a weight that others cannot see. Behind every face lies a struggle, a private sorrow, or a quiet pain that shapes their inner world. Schopenhauer's realism was not meant to make people hopeless, but to make them wise. He urged us to stop idealizing others and to recognize that pain is woven into the very fabric of existence. When we look at others from the outside, we often imagine that their lives are easier, their paths smoother, their happiness greater. Yet this is an illusion born from distance. We see their comfort but not their loneliness, their wealth but not their worries, their smiles but not their struggles. Schopenhauer warned that envy thrives on ignorance. It grows because we only see the surface. The truth, he believed, is that everyone bears a hidden load. It may be illness, disappointment, fear, or the quiet fatigue of simply enduring life's demands. To live is to wrestle with limitations, with desires that can never be fully satisfied, and with losses that cannot be undone. For Schopenhauer, suffering is the price of existence itself. Life, driven by the blind force of will, constantly pushes us to desire, to pursue, to want more. But desire always leads to dissatisfaction, because the moment one wish is fulfilled, another rises to take its place. This endless striving ensures that pain is always near, if not in wanting, then in losing, or in the emptiness that follows satisfaction. It is this unending tension that defines human life. Thus, even those who appear to have everything still suffer, often in ways unseen by others. Understanding that every life carries burdens leads to compassion. When you stop assuming that others have it easier, you begin to relate to them more honestly. You see their humanity rather than their image. This awareness softens judgment and replaces envy with empathy. Schopenhauer's view may seem pessimistic, but in truth it invites a deeper form of kindness, a recognition that we are all companions in struggle. The rich suffer from anxiety and emptiness. the poor from want and hardship, the young from inexperience, the old from decay. There is no escape from pain, only different versions of it. Once this is understood, comparison becomes meaningless. To accept that every life has its burdens is not to surrender to despair, but to see reality clearly. It allows you to stop chasing the illusion of a perfect life, a life without pain or problems, and instead find peace within imperfection. This acceptance makes you stronger because it prepares you for life as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. Schopenhauer believed that wisdom begins when you no longer rebel against the nature of existence. You stop expecting constant happiness and instead cultivate calmness, resilience, and understanding. Those who understand this truth live more freely. They no longer measure their worth by how easy or comfortable their life is. They realize that suffering, while painful, also deepens the soul. It teaches endurance, humility, and perspective. The person who has faced pain without losing compassion or dignity becomes stronger than one who has never suffered. In this sense, the burdens we carry are not merely punishments. They are the instruments through which we grow wiser. When you recognize that every life carries hidden weight, your view of the world changes. You stop envying appearances, you stop judging others too quickly, and you start to appreciate the small moments of peace that come between struggles. Schopenhauer's truth is both sobering and liberating. No one escapes the hardships of existence, yet within that shared suffering lies a quiet form of connection. Every life, no matter how bright it appears, carries its shadows, and to understand this is to live with greater patience, compassion, and serenity. Envy corrupts the soul. Arthur Schopenhauer saw envy as one of the most destructive emotions in human nature, not only because it causes suffering, but because it eats away at the foundation of inner peace. Envy is more than just wanting what someone else has. It is resentment at the thought that another person possesses what you desire. It twists admiration into bitterness and curiosity into comparison. Schopenhauer believed that envy is the purest expression of ego, the inability to be content with oneself and the constant need to measure one's worth against others. It is a silent poison that turns the heart restless and the mind blind. When a person feels envy, they lose balance. Their focus shifts outward, toward the success, beauty, or happiness of others. Instead of nurturing their own growth, they become preoccupied with what they lack. This emotional comparison traps them in a constant state of dissatisfaction, because no matter how much they achieve, there will always be someone with more wealth, more recognition, more comfort. Schopenhauer taught that envy feeds on this endless hierarchy of comparison, and the more we indulge it, the more miserable we become. It creates a permanent sense of inferiority, making peace impossible. The corruption caused by envy lies in how it distorts perception. It makes the good in others feel like an injustice, as if their happiness somehow steals from yours. This false belief fuels resentment, which slowly hardens the heart. Envy cannot coexist with gratitude or compassion. It replaces appreciation with hostility and destroys the capacity for joy. Schopenhauer observed that envious people often become bitter not because they truly suffer, but because they cannot stand the idea that others are happier than they are. Their suffering is self-created, born from comparison rather than deprivation. This inner corruption grows silently. It begins as a small irritation and becomes a deep emotional habit. Envy can disguise itself as ambition or even fairness, convincing the mind that you merely deserve better. But its true nature is destructive because it makes the soul dependent on others' misfortune. When you feel secretly satisfied by another person's failure, you have surrendered your peace to one of the lowest instincts of human nature. Schopenhauer viewed this as a moral decay, a sickness that prevents spiritual development. The envious person cannot look inward honestly because their entire attention is chained to the external world. Freedom from envy requires humility and self-knowledge. To understand that everyone's path is different is to begin healing the mind from comparison. Schopenhauer suggested that real strength comes from independence, the ability to define your worth without needing to be superior to anyone. When you stop competing for validation, your soul becomes calm. You begin to appreciate others' success as a reflection of human possibility, not as a threat to your own. This shift from resentment to admiration purifies the inner life and restores clarity. Envy also blinds people to their own potential. When your thoughts revolve around what others possess, you lose sight of what you could create. Instead of investing energy in improvement, You waste it in silent frustration. Schopenhauer would say that this is why envy not only corrupts morality but also intelligence. It keeps the mind occupied with trivial comparison rather than genuine understanding. The person who overcomes envy becomes creative, focused, and at peace, because they no longer need external proof of their worth. To protect the soul from corruption, one must cultivate gratitude. Gratitude shifts attention from lack to abundance, from others' blessings to your own. It restores balance by reminding you that happiness is not a competition. Every person's life carries light and shadow, joy and pain. To envy another is to desire their happiness without knowing their suffering. Schopenhauer's wisdom lies in recognizing that inner freedom begins where envy ends. The uncorrupted soul does not measure, it observes. It does not resent, it understands. And in that understanding, it discovers a peace that no comparison can destroy. Focus on mastery, not comparison. This principle captures the essence of Schopenhauer's call for inner independence and self-cultivation. He believed that true strength comes from within, from the mastery of one's mind, abilities, and character, not from how one measures up against others. Comparison to him was a trap that enslaves the individual to external validation. The more you compare yourself to others, the more your worth depends on forces outside your control. But when you focus on mastery, you direct your energy toward growth, discipline, and understanding. The only things that truly belong to you. Schopenhauer saw comparison as one of the main sources of human misery. People, he said, are rarely content with what they have. They define their happiness by how their situation looks in relation to someone else's. This constant measurement against others destroys peace of mind, because there is no end to it. The world will always contain someone wealthier, more admired, or more successful. In contrast, the pursuit of mastery turns attention inward. Instead of asking, "Am I better than them?" you begin asking, "Am I better than I was yesterday?" That single change in focus transforms the entire direction of your life. It replaces insecurity with purpose and jealousy with determination. To focus on mastery is to understand that life is not a competition but a process of refinement. Every individual has unique strengths, weaknesses, and circumstances. Comparing your journey to another's is meaningless because no two paths are alike. Schopenhauer emphasized that what defines a person's worth is not how they appear in society, but how well they develop their inner capacities. Mastery is not about external recognition. It is about becoming skillful in thought, composed in emotion, and wise in action. The more you grow in this way, the less you need validation. You begin to draw satisfaction from your own progress, from the quiet pride of self-improvement, rather than the fleeting praise of others. Comparison, on the other hand, is a form of dependence. It gives control of your emotions to others. When you base your self-esteem on external success, you make yourself vulnerable to every rise and fall in public opinion. Someone else's achievement can instantly diminish your joy, even though it changes nothing about your own life. This is the foolishness Schopenhauer warned against, the waste of energy on things that do not concern your inner self. Mastery frees you from this weakness. When your focus is on your craft, your understanding, and your growth, you stand on your own ground. You stop chasing approval and start cultivating excellence for its own sake. Mastery also requires patience and solitude, two qualities Schopenhauer deeply valued. He believed that only those who can spend time alone with their thoughts can truly develop their mind. The crowd seeks distraction. The wise seek depth. When you turn your attention inward, you begin to see how much potential lies untapped within you. You no longer need to imitate others because you are too busy perfecting what is uniquely yours. This dedication brings a sense of dignity that no external comparison can give. Even small improvements become meaningful because they are results of your own effort. Focusing on mastery also cultivates humility. The more you learn and grow, the more aware you become of how much remains unknown. This awareness protects you from arrogance and from the insecurity that comes from competition. Instead of feeling threatened by others' success, you begin to respect it, knowing that their mastery does not reduce yours. Each person who masters something adds to the richness of the world, not to your loss. Schopenhauer would say that this understanding is the mark of wisdom, the ability to admire without envy and to strive without hostility. When you replace comparison with mastery, your motivation changes from ego to purpose. You work not to prove yourself, but to express yourself. You no longer need to outperform others. You need only to fulfill your own potential. This kind of focus brings calm strength, because your happiness no longer depends on the unpredictable world outside you. It comes from the steady progress within, from knowing that no matter what others achieve, you are faithfully becoming the best version of yourself. In the end, Arthur Schopenhauer teaches us that the greatest victory is not over others, but over ourselves. Envy, comparison, and illusion blind us to the truth that real happiness, peace, and strength come from within. Every life carries its own burdens. Every appearance hides unseen struggles, and every moment of envy steals from our inner freedom. When we stop chasing what others have and begin mastering our own mind, we discover something far more valuable than success or recognition: the quiet dignity of self-knowledge. True wisdom is learning to walk your own path with calmness, gratitude, and clarity, knowing that the richest life is not the one that shines the brightest, but the one that understands its own light.